does he do? He might go all the way. He gives it a wide. It's a chance. It'll be a goal. It's been rolled through. He can. Cometh the moment. Cometh the champion.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Swans Blog, SwansCast. Tonight, I am joined by Stephen Treloar from Over the Line Sports. Stephen, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, Justin. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Good to have you on again. And it seems like you're a bit of a good luck charm there with the Swans performance on the weekend.
Yeah, although I tell you what, the nerves just hit me for some reason. I'm not sure whether it's because it's finals, but I was pissing myself a bit before the game started. But luckily, we didn't have too much to worry about after the first quarter.
No, absolutely not. I think the first quarter was a very good sort of finals quarter. It was arguably the best finals quarter of the first three matches. And definitely the Swans just put the pedal to the metal afterwards, and they just smashed the Bombers pretty much everywhere, all over the park.
Yeah, there were a few definite highlights, especially in that game that I hadn't seen too much of in previous games, particularly our contested marking. Some of that was just absolutely great to see.
Oh, it was pretty amazing to watch Callum Sinclair just give Michael Hurley an absolute bath, especially when Michael Hurley made the All-Australian team and Kennedy didn't get a look in, Grundy didn't get a look in, Rampy didn't get a look in, and he gave him the Carlisle treatment. He made him look pretty bloody ordinary, especially in that first half. So let's get straight into the heroes and villains. So, Stephen, would you like to kick it off with your hero of the week?
Now, I'm only going to... This guy deserves so much praise, but I actually have two villains in mind this week, so I'll just keep the hero short and sweet. I'm sure we'll talk about him later in the podcast. Callum Sinclair.
Yes.
Callum Sinclair has had an absolute corker of... the past few months, really. Last week was one of his, would we say it's a career best game for the Swans?
Yes, I would certainly agree with that.
And to keep Kurt Tippett probably out of the side for the rest of finals is no mean feat for a guy who's come over from West Coast. So, yeah, good on him.
Especially given last year how, online he was.
Exactly.
Yeah, and even this year he was basically competing with Darcy Cameron for almost third, fourth choice in the ruck, and most people looked at Callum Sinclair and went, you know what, if we got rid of him, it wouldn't be such a bad thing.
Now it's something about Kurt Tippett, so look how the tables turn.
I know, and a lot of those people who said, you know what, we could do without him, I'm going to admit that, I was one of those people.
Yeah.
They've turned around and I think they're eating a lot of humble pie.
Yep.
So, look, it's been absolutely superb performance, especially the last, 5-6 weeks from him. He's been superb. Now, I have a hero of the week, and I think we're going to keep it on the Swans side of things. My hero of the week is Dean Towers.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's pretty hard to look past him, given what his performance on the weekend was. He has played pretty well in finals. He has a track record of turning up. He did it against Fremantle early on in his career. I think he only played maybe half a dozen to a dozen games up to that point. And it was when Sam Reid went off injured and we had no forward line. And he was absolutely amazing in that game. And then this game, in particular, he was sensational. He didn't have that many possessions, but that's not what the most important thing was. It was his pressure acts and his second, third, fourth efforts. And I've talked about this a lot. I've blogged about it. I've mentioned it on forums and Facebook groups, and you get, the obligatory, but he only gets like 6, 8, 10 possessions a game, but that's not what he's in there. He's not in there to be a high possession getter. And he kicked 3 goals from 14 disposals. Again, pretty bad percentage, just under 70 disposal efficiency. but 10 of those were contested. So, what
He's
can
one
you
of
do?
those guys who really gives full effort, doesn't he? And
100% of the game.
for Towers in particular, that's something I think I've underrated with him in the past. Of course, his skills have improved, and as he's gotten confidence being consistently in the senior team. But I think 99% of Swans fans at some point, shook their head a bit at Towers. But now it's such a great utility for us.
Yeah, look, he has been great, and I think when we had Ted Richards on about 7 weeks back, and he said, look, Dean Towers is a very important structural player. He offers a tremendous amount of flexibility. His ability to actually pinch it in the ruck is critical to how the Swans structure up. And you got to say, it's been a coaching masterstroke to have him pinch it in the ruck and do it competently as well. So he does a pretty good role in the ruck, and it allows Tippett or Sinclair, when they're in the side, to just sit at full forward and do what they do best. And Sinclair, he's your hero, and he's no slouch coming out of full forward anyway. I mean, he's really quick, so...
Yeah, he didn't have that many hitouts, I think, from memory looking at the stats. So being able to leave him as a forward and leave Naismith as a main ruck, which is, I think now, we can safely say for both those players is their best position. It's great to have that sort of clarity with those guys.
Oh, yeah, absolutely agree. And I think, like, when Tippett plays full forward, he looks so much better than when he plays in the ruck. So it's one of those cases of, do you actually give a little to, get gain, or do you just sort of try and go back to the old Tippett, Sinclair, Tippett, Naismith rotating structure? And to be honest, the current structure works. It really works.
And yeah, because Horst Longmire was saying that he didn't pick Tippett partially because he wasn't sure whether he could play out a full game. And again,
yes, exactly.
We'll talk about this later on with the reserves grand final review, but he wasn't exactly too impressive in that game, was he?
No, look, his first half was... Now, I don't know if he was injured. He certainly had strapping on his leg, but his first half left a lot to be desired. I wasn't the only one who thought this. There was a number of people at the ground who were, watching his performance and sort of thinking, if you want to get back into seniors, you got to do better than what you're doing.
Yeah.
And he wasn't good enough. In the last quarter when the game was on the line, he stepped up and he was good in the last quarter. But you can't put in basically 20 minutes of giving a shit. That's just not good enough. So, he wasn't good enough. And on your quote, this is what Longmire said. He said, Kurt trained on Thursday and got through quite well, but we were going into a final and we needed to make sure everyone was up for the full 120 minutes. I think that says enough. That says everything we need to know about the situation.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a villain of the week?
I do, and this one comes out of a bit from left field because I absolutely love this person to bits. My cousin. So, to fill you guys in, she got married on Saturday. And, of course, the beginning of the wedding, 20 minutes before kickoff of the Swans-Essendon game.
Oh, no.
And, of course, she lives in Sydney, but we had the wedding in Orange. And, of course, the place where we had the reception didn't have a TV there. It was a bit tricky to watch the score on the radio. So, Sarah, if you happen to be listening to this, I love you to bits, and it was a beautiful wedding. And
not good enough.
Yeah, but be a bit more considerate, please.
Hey, it's kind of like the people who get married on grand final day. Like, why? Why would you do that?
Yeah, it could have been. Still, I wasn't impressed.
Yeah, I can imagine that was a game you did not want to miss, to be honest. So I feel for you. So I do have a villain of the week as well. And mine is from one of the other games, and it comes down to a coaching move. My villain is Chris Scott, dropping Daniel Menzel.
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange call, wasn't it?
Now, he came out and he said that he didn't select him because he doesn't put enough defensive pressure on in the forward line, which is quite bizarre because he is their second highest goal kicker of the season, and it's really quite confusing that if you're going to play him through the season and he's going to kick goals, why on earth do you drop pretty much a guaranteed avenue to goal right on the eve of finals?
Yeah, and if you do want more defensive pressure in your forward line, surely there's someone else who'd be a better scapegoat than Dan Menzel.
I would have thought play Motlop in the forward line, but
Yeah.
even then he had a dog-awful game. So
Well, he's had a bit of a dog-awful season, hasn't he?
he has, yeah. So, look, I thought that was the wrong move. They clearly didn't have any forward presence whatsoever.
Yeah.
Tom Hawkins didn't have any help. Harry Taylor was... he was not having a good game. So, they missed him. And again, it comes back to do you give to take? And I think dropping him was by far the wrong move because, that was they should have just accepted the fact that he's not a pressure forward. He's there to kick goals.
One thing that did cross my mind is that Dan Menzel's actually a free agent at the end of this year. So I'm not sure. I highly doubt in a final series that there'd be any kind of political sort of list move.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
leaving or anything. I highly doubt they'd do that. But I mean, if the guy is a free agent, I don't know. You want to play him, but that really shouldn't matter. I mean, you want to win finals. This is the business end of the season. You don't just drop your second best goal kicker.
Yeah, I agree. And just because you got a double chance doesn't mean you should throw matches.
No.
That's not to say that they threw a match, but they shot themselves in the foot with their selections. Let's not, shy away from that.
That match was a huge arm wrestle with insane pressure for 3/4, and then Geelong
for the first 2.5, yeah. And it always had that feeling that if Geelong could get their game together, they'll always a chance to just go bang and run over the top of Tigers.
Yeah.
But, Richmond, they hung tough, and I think they've learnt from their losses earlier this year, and they just went bang in the last quarter. And I think it all started at the end of the third quarter when they kicked the 2 late goals to get back out to 13 points, and then from there, the game was over.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was beyond Geelong at the last break, because Tigers, they were running rampant. So, yeah, look, let's do a quick wrap of the rest of the finals. So we had the first game, and we did the preview last week, and I was really excited and really looking forward to all of these matches. And I don't think any of them really delivered from a spectacle point of view, except for the last one. So. Adelaide versus GWS. Let's just say that was a massive disappointment.
Yeah, really underwhelming for what it could have been.
And, Adelaide had Sloan out, and I know we talked about it last week, and I sort of said, no Sloan, no Adelaide, and yourself and Rowan disagreed, which was, fair enough. And, to your credit, you were right. They can play without Sloan, but it helps when... It certainly helps when your opponent's not, trying to lose the match at the same time. So, yeah.
Those Crouch brothers, they're going to be a midfield force for years.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, look, GWS were poor. They were really poor. I know Stephen Park, he's been on the podcast several times. He has been quite critical of GWS, and I think he's spot on, because they played like they didn't have any kind of game plan in place. They just relying almost purely on talent to win games and win contests and get the ball forward and just hope that Cameron and Patton can turn some magic and that'll be it. But...
Yeah, I agree. I did manage to watch that game with a few beers the night before the wedding, and it seemed to me that the quality of their inside 50s were just shocking all night. Guys like Callan Ward,
they were.
Gives his heart out to win the inside ball, but then those outside distributors who pump the ball inside 50 just weren't doing anything for them. And now there's worse news for GWS with Cameron and Shane Mumford out for the rest of the season. It just doesn't look good for the rest of their final season.
No, that is absolutely terrible news. And Mumford. So yeah, look, I mean. Look, they're playing West Coast this weekend, and look, they are going to struggle, I think, because they've got players, they have depth, but almost their entire team's out of form. And the players that they're losing were the best players in those positions. They don't really have anyone good enough to back up. I mean, you got Dawson and Lobb, but they're quite poor in respect to Mumford. So but
getting Stevie back in would. I mean, I think getting someone of that experience who knows how to play finals, I think that'll be a huge help for them. And look, I can't believe we're actually questioning whether West Coast can actually snatch this one. If you ask at the start of the year, yeah, they definitely can. But if you ask at the start of the year, GWS should have absolutely been roaring favourites with the quality they've got on their list. But it's just, as you said, they're just underwhelmed and their game plan just isn't working, whether that's to do with the attitude of the players or their coaching panel. I'm not sure, but something's got to change there for 2018.
Yeah. I think it's a combination. Yeah. Maybe the coaching panel's a bit too naive. There isn't enough, senior, experienced AFL personalities there to challenge and guide. But I think it really comes down to the attitude and application of the players, and it just hasn't been good enough for long enough.
No.
And I think the game on the weekend was a perfect example of that. They were nowhere near good enough for long enough, and when the game was there to be won, they were found wanting by a very long way. And Adelaide deserved to win that game by almost 100 points, to be honest. They should have thrashed them.
Yep, agreed.
So let's move on to the next one. We had Richmond and Geelong. Now, this was, in one way, it was an enthralling game because it was very tight, tense, and there was a lot of pressure. And the difference between the two sides was Richmond was clinical, they were clean, they had a lot of good disposal, but they don't have a forward line. They literally cannot score, and they kicked, I think, 4 goals to three-quarter time.
Yeah, that was just
insane.
I mean, it was a low-scoring game,
kicked 3.
and the pressure was huge, but yeah, they needed to really capitalise there.
They did, and they held massive dominance throughout the game in the inside 50s and marks and possessions and tackles, and they swarmed Geelong, but they just don't have a forward line that can function for 4 quarters. We saw it against us in round 13. They blitzed us in the first 35-40 minutes. They kicked, I think, 7 goals, and then after that, they kicked, I think, 3 goals for the rest of the game.
Yeah,
which was almost the same as last, the qualifying final, where they kicked, I think, 7 or 8 goals in the last 35-40 minutes of the match.
Yeah,
up until that point,
a lot said
about
their small forward line, and how effective that can be. And to be fair, in terms of points scored, they have improved, and their structure is better than what it was last year when they were playing Griffiths and Sean Hampson and guys like that. So it has improved, but there are patches when they can just really drop off. And I mean, if we do happen to play these guys in the grand final, which looks likely given who Richmond have got coming up, then hopefully that's something we can capitalize on.
Yeah, and look, it's a good point. I think I would be quite confident playing them in a final against Richmond. Of the top 4 teams to play, it would be Adelaide least likely, and then Geelong and Richmond equally, they're on par.
We always smash Geelong, though.
Yeah, I know. And we don't always do Richmond in, but more recently we've played quite well against them.
Yeah.
It just was that first 35-40 minutes in round 13 where we just didn't turn up. And I think that was on the back of, flogging the dogs. And the boys maybe went, let's drink a bit of bathwater while we're here. And, nearly lost the match.
The thing I'm worried about, though, is it'll be played at the MCG. And, if we were playing them in a preliminary final or something like that, the fans for Richmond were loud as... I was actually watching a blog on YouTube from a mate of mine who was at the game, a Geelong supporter in the cheer squad, and he was trying to say stuff during the game, and just couldn't hear a word he said. The noise was just absolutely immense. And, if it's a grand final, there won't be as many kind of, rabid Tigers fans there with all the more classic corporate sort of thing. But,
yeah,
geez, they're a loud bunch. Damien Hardwick said it himself that it gives the players such a boost to have that sort of loud noise just roaring behind you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And look, Richmond, they have a lot of faithful supporters who have been through a lot, and, they're due for a little bit of something, but...
Hopefully not too much.
No, I don't think they're going to get too much. There's no way they're going to beat Adelaide. Not even in Melbourne.
No.
I just see them not... It's not happening. It's like what I said last week. You take out Rewalt, who is the next forward? The next forward is either a guy who played 6 games or Dustin Martin.
Yeah.
You take away Dustin Martin, who is the next forward? They don't actually have one. They don't even have like a backup ruck who can play forward. You basically got to play one of their defenders in the forward line, and then you actually take out one of their key defenders because they don't have a lot of depth back there. So
unless they decide to play a guy like Ivan Soldo or someone like that as a second ruck who isn't that too flash of a player at the moment, he's still kind of early days. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, just to try and get some forward line presence, even height. But if the game's slippery and wet, then I think the Tigers will have an advantage. However, if it's dry and fast, I don't see them having an advantage apart from maybe a 10-15 minute spurt either side at halftime, simply because Adelaide's got the pace to go with them. Sydney's got the pace to go with them, and Sydney's got the superior marking power and arguably the better contested game. So...
I'm just looking at the goal kickers for the Geelong-Richmond game. Caddy and Townsend were their leading kickers with 2 each, and there's just single goal kickers from there. So they do rely on that spread of goal kickers.
Yeah, through the midfield,
reminiscent of the Swans in 2012 when we won that flag almost. When I think it was Jetta who was our leading goal kicker for that year, coming off a wing.
Yeah.
So,
we still, in that year, we still had Goods, we still had Reed, and we still had LRT.
And
they were rotating through the forward line. So we didn't have an amazing forward line, but we had height. And LRT was a superb contested marker, but he was basically the best contested marker on the team. So he was taking defenders to cleaners at times, and he played an amazing 2012 grand final.
Yeah, true. Robbed of a North Smithville too, I reckon.
Yeah, especially in 2005, I'd say. And then, or 2006, either one. He was excellent in both. Then we'll talk about our game in a minute, but then we got West Coast Port Adelaide. They finally put in the final of the round, and thank God 2 teams actually turned up. And look, I stuck around for the NEAFL, so I only saw little bits and pieces, but I saw the score, and it was West Coast out to an early lead. They looked like they were just going to smash them, and I was kind of a bit chuffed because I picked them. And then Port Adelaide got a massive run on, and I think they scored about 40 points to 10.
Yeah.
Or maybe even 50 points to 10. And they almost won the game. And then it went to extra time because it was, 60 all. And they kicked the first 2 goals for.
That's a lot of opportunity there.
Yep. And then West Coast just went bang, bang, bang. They got the last goal of the first half, and then they got the next 2. The last, a contentious Shuey free kick, which unfortunately the AFL's ruled as correct, but anyone with more than 3 brain cells will know it was wrong.
Yeah, in hindsight, yeah, definitely. Although, if you're looking at the vision live,
wrong on the day.
If you're looking at the vision live, go on.
I thought it was wrong live. It's a Shuey duck. Anyone who watches enough football knows Shuey drops his knees and he lifts his arm.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, it was a pretty. I thought even for Shuey, it was pretty subtle that particular instance.
Yeah,
it was maybe not exactly a 50-50 line call, but you can make an argument either way, I reckon. So I'm not too kind of pissed off about that, although I'm not a Port Adelaide supporter. So
yeah. Look, he went back and he slotted the goal. So, credit where credit's due. Yeah, he did not miss, and it didn't even look like it was going to miss. It was a superb shot.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I know. He is a good set shot. So he's hoping that West Coast give it to some other pleb if they're kicking after the siren against us or something like that. Maybe give it to Mackenzie or one of their defenders who just can't kick, at all. So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting one because they did and didn't deserve to win it, but in the end, they did enough to win it.
Yeah.
And that is the most important thing. So, yeah, that's where it ended up. So now with our semi-finals, we've got Sydney and Geelong, and that is on Friday night. And then we have GWS against West Coast. And just before we get to our game, some very, very big news coming out of the games.
Yep.
Is that GWS have lost 2 players. They've lost Cameron and Mumford, which we touched on.
Yep.
And the Cats have lost Cam Guthrie and Jake Kolodjasny.
Oh, Kolodjasny is a big loss for their defence.
He is, and Guthrie's a big loss for their midfield.
He's taken a lot of responsibility this year and done pretty well, I reckon. So,
he would take. I think he would take. He wouldn't take Sinclair, but he would take. I'm just trying to think. Maybe if Parker or Heaney played forward, he'd take one of them.
He could probably almost play on a guy
Rowan
as well.
Yeah,
he can play on those sort of tools.
Yeah, he can. So he is. Yeah, he's a big loss for them. And they don't have a tremendous amount of depth in the midfield or in defence to actually bring someone in. So it is 2 very big losses for them. So what did you sort of make of those outs for those 2 teams?
Well, for GWS, as I said, it brings West Coast right into it. With the game plan they brought against Adelaide, I hope something changes, because if not, West Coast will sneak the win. I think West Coast only just managed to do it against Port, but what GWS brought up to Adelaide was just absolutely awful. And teams, those sort of lower-ranked teams like West Coast can win against that. So
yes, agreed.
Better hope something changes for them. I was just thinking someone who could come in for GWS as well, maybe, and have an impact is Ryan Griffin. He hasn't
played since round 3, though.
No, he hasn't, but that's with ankle injury as well as some form stuff. But you need that. I'm not sure whether it's experience that they need, someone like not to go for the precocious young talent sort of thing that they seem to have the image of, but they need to do something, that's for sure. And Cam Guthrie and Jake Kolodjasny, they're not vital players for Geelong, but they certainly are important in terms of structure, and hopefully they'll make the most of that. Yeah, and as you said, their defence will need all the help it can get against us, and having Jake out won't help with that at all.
No, it won't, and I don't think the Swans will try and stack the forward line. It's pretty tall as it is.
Not with talls, no.
It gives Sinclair and Reid a lot of flexibility, and Rowan can pretty much push up with impunity now. And Franklin can play. I think they'll play Franklin high and drag Lonergan out.
Yep.
And leave
Sinclair deep.
Yeah, play Sinclair out of the goal square and try and get Mackie on him.
Yep.
And that'll allow.
If that doesn't work, you can swap it easily, because playing Buddy deep was what happened.
Even Rowan.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Rowan won't have a natural matchup, so you could almost play Rowan out of the goal square, both in the lead up.
I just love watching him on a wing, but as a forward, he took a couple of really nice marks as well. Everyone took nice marks against Essendon, but
look, though Kolodjasny, I think, throws their defensive matchups out, and if they don't bring back Menzel, I think they're just going to struggle to score full stop.
The closest replacement I can think of off the top of my head for Jake Kolodjasny is maybe Jackson Thurlow, but he's more of that kind of come in right attacking halfback sort of type, and I'm not 100% sure of his kind of defensive one-on-one capabilities. So even then, it's not too promising.
Well, they might have to roll the dice on that.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that the Swans have done very well over the last couple of years is they have rotated a lot of players through the forward line, midfield, and defence.
Yeah, agreed.
So there's at least 10 players who can play all 3 positions from front to back, and they play them very well. So you can basically rotate Hewitt, Papley, Kieran Jack, and McVeigh. Basically off those three positions. Then you've got Newman, who spent some time forward and back and on the wing. You've got Jones, who's played all three positions. You've got Lloyd, who can play all three, but he's better as a transition wing half back.
Yep.
Heaney, Mills. You can even switch out Hanbury and play him off wing, half forward, half back. You can play half Parker out of pretty much full forward pocket, half forward wing. So the list of players who can actually play those roles, it's long. And not only that, you've got Rowan, who can play everywhere but full back and the rock. So, and Towers, he's another one. Everyone keeps forgetting him, but he can play wherever they want him to play, and he'll do a good job.
Yep. I think that's gone back to 2012, that grand final win. That was something that I did take out of that, was particularly rotations between midfield and forward line. That was something where I think we kind of led the competition on that, and everyone's kind of caught up.
Yeah, I agree, and definitely having that flexibility, it changes matchups. So when one thing's not working, you just go to the next one, and you go to the next one until your matchup is good, it's working, and you're beating your opponent.
Yep.
Now, let's talk a bit about the Swans' elimination win. Now, as you said before, coming into the game, you're a little bit nervous. You wouldn't be the only Swan supporter who was a little bit nervous.
I think it was just finals favour for me. I'm not, like... I love finals, don't get me wrong, but just suddenly every match has that much more importance, and my nerves just go out, go up like crazy. And I tell you what, I'm not a fan of it. It's not good for me.
No, there's not too many people, I imagine, who would be a fan of it. And I guess, given the time of the year, the age, the adage that anyone can win on a given day, and it's true for sports, all sports, anyone can win on any given day, when both are playing at, their best. So, look, over the last couple of years, Sydney have not been good performers in the first rounds of the finals. 2013, 2015, 2016 come to mind. So you got Hawthorn. Then you've got Hawthorn again.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, twice. And then last year was GWS. So there's certainly room for improvement there. And I think the best thing that could have happened was we start 0-6, and then every game is an elimination final. So you don't have a 3 or 4 game run at the end where you're trying to build a little bit of finals form. Basically had finals form from round 7. Every game has had to be played at that intensity to win.
Justin, come on, be real with me here. Would you have said that at the start of the year? Would you?
No,
have said,
God, no. I would not have said drop the first 6 and take a holiday. Just play the reserves for the first 6 rounds. No, I would not have said that. No, not a chance. But
I will agree. It has turned out well for us in terms of mentality. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and maturity as well. The thing that I liked that we stopped doing was trying to play all the kids. Sometimes, it was a necessity, but I think another one was a change in mentality to a more pragmatic approach to injury and man management, I think helped as well. So that coupled with let's not play all the kids at the same time, I think was a massive benefit. Plus, Parker, Hanbury, Kennedy, Franklin, etc., so forth, all returning to form. Kieran Jack coming back into the team. Jared McVeigh coming back into the team, and he has been amazing. I mean, it's one of his best seasons, like this decade, this season. That's how good he has been, and he's
been immense.
He's an old guy. Oh, yeah. Like, he might not be quick anymore, but he is as sharper as he has ever been. So, yeah, look, not a great start, 0-6, but it's turned out all right. And I came into this elimination final going, look, as long as we stop them in the midfield and we don't let them get another run on, we should be home and hose in this one.
Yeah.
And I know last week I said I think I predicted them by about 45 points.
Yep.
46, and Franklin had kicked 6. Well, he kicked 4, and we won by 61, I believe it was.
Kind of balances out, doesn't it, the differences?
Yeah, it does. It does. Now, just before we get into what you think, so did you by chance happen to catch my player ratings?
I did manage to have a quick look at them today, yeah.
So, did you have a look at my last player rating, who I actually rated?
Oh, it was one of the umpires, wasn't it?
No.
The player rating.
I think.
No. Oh,
Yeah.
missed the guy out again.
All right. I'll just quickly go over it.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly go over it. So, I'm looking for it now. Here we go. So, my last one is 22, Dean Towers.
Oh, yep.
Career best game, had 14 disposals, 10 contested, 3 goals, 2 marks, 5 tackles, and 4 hit-outs, including a dominant leap over Bell Chambers in the second quarter where he got like basically a foot over the top of him, and all the fans in our bay were cracking themselves laughing. It was hilarious.
Yeah. Dean Towers, when he was drafted, had the record for the vertical leap.
You keep saying that, and I think he's really showing that.
He's got such a good jump on him. It's great that other people are starting to realise that now as well.
Well, if he's getting 4 hit-outs in a ruck and he's actually bodying up, and he beat Bell Chambers once when he bodied up him, so I thought he was superb. He finished with 3 intercept possessions, 5 score involvements, 3 clearances, and 18 pressure acts. He had a great game. Now, I gave the next player an 8.5. Brendan Goddard.
Praise be.
So he makes the player ratings again. Career best game for the Swans. Superb in defence, turning the ball over with impunity. Proving completely ineffective as the spare man in defence as the ball repeatedly sailed over his head. Gave Franklin a corky, who then kicked 4 goals in a quarter.
Yeah, Franklin, such a good game.
He did.
That's how he plays when he gets a corky. Maybe one of the medical staff should just pop on the leg before he gets
whack him
out.
in the leg before every game. Yeah, he was dominating in that second quarter. They had no chance of stopping him.
That second goal was so good. The way he hung around the contest and just waited for the perfect opportunity to get into it. And then just pushes off a player, sinks the goal. Oh, so good.
And Papley gave him a great handball that basically put him behind a player too, so he was never any chance of being tackled or intercepted.
No, with his strength as well, yeah, definitely.
And then the third goal was a nice one, and then the fourth one was just this absolutely hilarious missed mark by Bagley, where he's just nudged him under the ball to perfection, right at the perfect time, and I was right there in that pocket when he took the mark, and you could just see the ball was probably like 1 centimetre over Bagley's fingers. And he's taken the mark as just like, you are ridiculous, mate. You are a freak.
Yeah, when you think of Buddy, you don't think of marking, particularly overhead marking, is his strong point. But he did have a couple of those over the weekend. He was great at that.
Well, he dropped the specky as well, a massive specky.
Yeah, that was huge.
But you're right, his overhead marking has massively improved this year. And I think as he gets older, he's going to have to improve in that, continually improve in that.
As
he's not going to have...
yeah.
He'll be a bit like Goods. He's not going to have that pace and athleticism to, destroy his opponent. So he's going to have to mark leading up and then body on body and, more of a Tony Lockett kind of mould.
Use his timing to,
Yeah, without the aggro. So, look, there was a couple of really amazing things that came out of the match. Now, I don't know if you actually know these. Let me just pull up the match report because I put them all in it.
Yep.
So, it basically was a record-breaking afternoon for the Swans. Now, before this match, which was the 634th AFL-VFL final played, the Sydney's second quarter score of 10 goals 3 was the highest ever second quarter score in a final.
I did not know that. That is...
It was insane.
Yep.
Now, the Swans halftime score of 83 was the highest ever recorded in a final.
What a good time to be in this form.
I know.
Yeah.
And the best part is, the final score, 121, was the most scored in a final at the SCG, and their winning margin was the biggest at the SCG, both in a final. And we also had a record-breaking crowd of, I'm just looking for it, 46,323.
Oh, that's just so good to hear.
Oh, it was amazing. And Rowan Connolly, in his match report, put it superbly. And look, the Swans, they kicked 7 goals in just over 16 minutes. And Rowan said, seldom in memory has a final gone from competitive to an absolute rout in so short a period.
Yeah, it's certainly what seemed to happen. I mean, as my cousin was walking down the aisle.
Hurry up, come on, I've got to get to the game.
The first quarter things were, a bit close, and then
we
just did up 3 gears, and they floundered.
Yeah, look, I don't know what happened with Essendon. It was just Kennedy got a free kick out of the middle, went long to Franklin. Franklin easily marked on the lead, turned around and went bang. And then
50.
Yep, and then the next one, I think it was it Jones? Or someone running off half-back, I think it was, went long inside 50, and then it spilled out the back, and power play to Franklin, another goal. And then about a minute later, another goal.
Yeah.
And then
it was 3 goals in 5 minutes for Buddy, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And then it was, I think, another 5 minutes before another goal. And then it was like... But then it gets even better because the Swans even managed to kick... After they kicked 4 goals, they kicked another 3 in 3 minutes.
And then guys like Rowan pop up, who was a bit quieter in that first half, and everyone really pitched in well.
Yeah. Well, here you go. It was after Heaney had that set shot and he pushed it wide. A couple minutes later, Sinclair missed it, and then a minute and a half later, Heaney kicked his first goal. And then literally 50 seconds later, or a minute later, Jake Lloyd kicked a goal when he marked on the lead.
Yep.
Straight out of the centre. And then literally 40 seconds later, Kennedy kicked another goal.
It was basically direct just play, isn't it? And that's...
it was. It was just clearance goal. Clearance goal.
That's the play that Essendon pride themselves on in terms of, running it up the gut sort of thing, especially when coming out of our own defensive 50. But we just... When we do it out of the centre stoppages, don't we? And we just get it forward so efficiently.
Well, even... one of the amazing things was even Naismith was getting centre clearances. He had a superb game. And I don't know if you saw the AFL ratings, but they gave him a 3.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. They gave him a 3 and they gave Chambers a 7. I was looking at the ratings.
Or something, like...
I don't know. Because they go, he got 44 hitouts and he gave, Naismith a bath.
No way.
Ignoring the fact that Naismith played like 65% of the game.
Yeah.
And he got about 20 hitouts against Towers. So Naismith
and Bell Chambers lost a hit-out contest against Dean Towers. I'm sorry, you can't give him a 7.
No, well, Towers got, I think, 4 against Bell Chambers. And I think Bell Chambers might have got like 15 to 18 or 20 against Towers.
Yeah.
But I agree. If you're losing hitouts to Towers, you're 15 centimetres taller than him. You should be able to
probably about 10 kilo heavier.
You should be able to outbody him, outjump him. And there was that one contest where he's gone in to try and body him, and then Towers has just jumped straight over the top of him.
Yep.
So, look, I gave Naismith an 8. And my ratings was repaid the Swans' faith and played a damn fine game. 33 hitouts, negated Bell Chambers and taught him a real football lesson. He had 44 hitouts and 3 disposals. So Sam finished with...
it was Naismith's work around the ground that showed up Bell Chambers a bit. And he's cemented his spot for the rest of the finals, I reckon.
I don't think he can be dropped. I don't think he can be dropped. Okay. Like, he had 10 disposals, 8 of them contested, 6 clearances, and 4 of them were from the centre square bounces.
Immense.
4 centre clearances. And it finished with 5 tackles. Like, I like what Tippett does, but to be honest, there is no way that he comes in for Sam Naismith in the ruck. And after what Sinclair's been doing in the forward line, you can't even say he can come in for Sinclair.
No.
Look, we'll
Sinclair
plays
sport now.
He does, yeah. We'll talk about
the... Let's just be clear about that. I don't want anything...
I agree. I agree, and he can play ruck, but he's not the greatest ruckman. But he is pretty damn good as a forward, as it turns out.
He's more than handy enough in the ruck, and if there's a ball up in the forward 50, you're more than happy to have Sinclair sitting there doing it.
Yep, agreed. But yeah, I think if you play him in the ruck, you just lose too much in the forward line.
Yeah, agreed.
And I was talking to this. I was talking about this with one of the Sydney locals up there, Brendan Weller, after the match, and he's a NEAFL watcher, and he watches the Swans probably like 18, 20 games a year, and he's going to be doing some reporting for the blog shortly.
Oh, great!
And we were watching the game, just like the way that Sinclair plays in the forward line is he sits in the goal square. And he forces someone to defend him. But when his defender goes up the ground, he goes with him. And that's what Longmire was saying as well. He follows the defender, so the defender has to be accountable. So even when Franklin was leading up to the 50, you could see Sinclair, he was within 10 metres of the goals. Or he'd move out to the opposite side to just give him space. And even when Franklin kicked that snap, where was Sinclair? He was almost out at the 50, out of the way. It's smart play, and if you watch Tippett and Franklin play together, they're basically spoiling each other. They're trying to mark the same ball. Franklin's forced to play high up the field while Tippett's, playing out of the 50, which is what Franklin prefers to do. So,
yeah.
Look, I like this matchup a lot better.
I agree with your points there.
So, quickly moving on, we had Kennedy back to his finals beast mode best.
I'm just looking at the votes for the Gary Ayres Award, the one for the best finals player over the course of the finals.
I haven't
series.
seen that, actually.
Yeah, they
so
just
how did he
about
fare?
6 o'clock tonight. We're recording on a Monday night.
Is that on the AFL website?
Yeah, on the AFL website. For the Sydney Essendon game, Josh Kennedy got 10 votes. So it's tied on the lead with Luke Shuey, who also got 10.
Yeah.
Luke Parker got 8. Sinclair and Towers both got 5, which is great.
Ooh.
Franklin got 1 and Lloyd got 1. So no votes for any Essendon players.
No, they didn't deserve it.
Just for clarity there, the coaches vote for 5 players, giving them a mark from 1 to 5. So the maximum a player can score is 10. So Kennedy got 5 votes from both coaches.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I love Captain Kennedy so much.
He was incredible. There wasn't much more that he could have done to have a perfect game. He was. You can't even say he was the difference. The whole team was the difference, but he just led from the front. And when it's those kind of games, when it's on the line, he steps up, and he stepped up big time. He kicked 2 goals in the second quarter. He was part of the group that pretty much ended the Bombers' night on the spot. So,
we overwhelmed them in the midfield, and Josh Kennedy is such a huge part of that. I mean, Luke Parker was as well. He had a above average game from his standards, I think. Once you look at Essendon for next year with Joe Watson out, they don't really have much midfield grunt in them, do they? Other than Dyson Heppel, who's not really an inside midfielder anyway, and Zach Merritt, who's not really an inside midfielder anyway. And you got to hope that Essendon come up with something.
Yeah, I reckon Essendon might try and put up their first round pick to try and snag someone, or they might be willing to trade a player for a first round pick. So Connor McKenna, he could leave. He's out of contract at the moment.
Well, you want to get nuts for him, though.
Look, I know I've talked about this before with a few people, and I've said that if Sydney wanted Connor McKenna and he wanted to come to Sydney, and Essendon said, "We'll take your first round," given this draft, I'd probably be willing to do that.
I think first round might be a bit high for that, but
I know. But if you're able to trade or swap picks later in the draft or future picks in the next year,
there has to be some pick swaps as well. Because I heard today someone saying that Jake Stringer might be a late first round pick for him. So there's a kind of bit of even for Jake Stringer, there's a big difference between him and the Irishman. So
exactly, they're different players as well. So
yeah.
And that's where it might come down to, in that they might have to trade to be able to get those picks to make the trades they want. And Jake Stringer could work for them, but he has his own, personal demons.
Yeah.
But there's no way they're going to be able to rebuild their midfield with just a first round draft pick. They need to. They have to trade. They have to trade to trade. Simple as that.
Yeah, they've got a few guys coming up in their reserves, but I don't think they'll be ready to, take the mantle next year.
Even then, you'd have to be worried about their depth as well. So,
yeah, guys like Dylan Clark, Kobe Much, they're great players, and if I could poach one of them, I probably would. But yeah, no, they're guys who I reckon will have to get debuts at some point next year.
Yeah, and agree with that. They're a bit like some of the other teams as well around them, where they have a good first team, a bit of first team depth. But once you look past their first team, it's actually really shallow. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they actually do in the off season. I think they'll have to trade. Goddard, you don't really know what they're going to do with him. I think making him captain was probably the worst thing they could have done.
Yeah,
and
great.
He is Captain Grouch. He is negative Nancy. So I reckon if they could get rid of him, they probably would, but he won't be going anywhere.
No.
But just to cap off our elimination win, we even won the third quarter with the foot off the accelerator, firmly on the handbrake.
Making sure not
Franklin.
good.
Yeah, like the game was over. They kicked 1-3 to start the third quarter off to try and get back in the game, and then the Swans kicked 4 in a row. 4 in a row. Yeah, I think it was 4 in a row. Just double checking.
Yeah.
Yep, they kicked 4 in a row. Unbelievable accuracy before the Bombers kicked the last 2.
Yeah, we kicked 19-7 for the match, which was, great. We love that sort of accuracy with the Swans.
Oh, it was superb, and the margin at one point was almost 80 points. So it was a great victory. I have said it on Big Footy, and I'm going to say it on the podcast. I was not particularly impressed with some of the behaviour of the travelling fans from Essendon. Now, this isn't to sort of lump everyone into the same boat or overgeneralise, but at the ground there was some pretty distasteful supporting behaviour, I would say. You get your usual casual racism and all sorts of stupid behaviour. But I was more unimpressed with the fact that, they booed the club song, they booed when the players came out, they booed when the players were warming up, they booed when Franklin came off with a cork thigh. They even did a louder boo when he went back on the ground. They were booing things, they're booing everything they could. And the typical behaviour that you see in Melbourne, it was on show, and I thought it was just really disrespectful. So for me, winning that match the way we did, it was beautiful. I really enjoyed it.
Push them up a bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm bitter. I was just disappointed as a football fan to be in the same stadium as some of those numpties. So
yeah. No, there's a few rotten eggs in every club. I actually there was someone, I think I saw an article, who made a complaint to AFL House about the behaviour of some of the Richmond fans at the Richmond Geelong game. Now, I imagine the mob mentality in a crowd of when 70,000 out of 90,000 fans are Richmond fans.
Yeah,
there's bound to be a
few
couple
idiots.
of bad things happening there, but
Yeah, look, you can't... Look, I'm not sort of saying you want everyone to sort of sit there, arms crossed, legs folded, and enjoy the game, but at the same time, you don't really want to hear people being racist or saying, really silly things that they normally wouldn't say under, normal circumstances, really. Sometimes football can be a bit of a release for some of these people, and I don't like it at all.
No.
I like it less when they're actually doing it to their own players. I think that's just disgraceful behaviour. So big thumbs down to the travelling support. Although it was a good atmosphere and they made a lot of noise, they need to do it in a more, socially acceptable manner.
Yeah, you gotta know when to toe the line a bit, I think.
Yeah, agreed. So now let's have a quick chat about the NEAFL Grand Final. Now,
do you have to?
Unfortunately, we're going to have to.
Yep.
Now, did you by any chance catch this game?
I was at the time I was at the reception, so I was probably not sober enough to.
I
watch
think you
much
might
of
have
it.
had something more enjoyable to watch because
Yeah, I did manage to have a look at some of the scores as they
it
happened,
was
but yeah,
yeah.
it
Look,
was
it was
the point where
dreadful viewing.
the point where I watched it was in that fourth quarter when I think we were 20 points down at the time and just started clawing our way back. And
Clawing, yes.
when I saw the final score, like at about 1 o'clock in the morning, I was just shattered.
Yeah,
These guys have been at the big dance of the NEAFL for a couple of times now, and we've yet to win the reserves flag. So in a comp which we've been pretty much dominating all year, we lost to Brisbane, who were the only team we lost to earlier
Twice.
Twice. Couldn't have gone worse.
Oh, look.
Well, it could have gone worse.
Yeah, it could. It could have been worse.
Yeah.
At times in the match, it looked like it should have been worse.
Yeah.
It's one of those really interesting ones where the Swans dominated the early clinches, and if it wasn't for their wastefulness in front of goal and just, I don't even know, their shocking goal-kicking accuracy, they should have pretty much been 4 goals up a quarter time. They really dominated. However, despite kicking 2-6, which is a lot for a first quarter, Brisbane, they did what they had to. They were reasonably efficient with the ball they had. It was greasy conditions, cold, and a lot of players slipped over. But the difference was, it's amazing, the difference, because Brisbane were a bit like Richmond actually. They were clinical, they were clean, they hit up well, disposal efficiency was good, and the Swans reserve team was a lot like Geelong. They just constantly fumbled it. Whenever they had the ball, they just kicked it long without looking. The blinders were on. They weren't hitting even targets 15 metres away. They were missing them by 2-3 metres. So there was a couple of players who were in the Swans best list who were most culpable for some of the missed opportunities. Jordan Foote, in particular, he tried hard, he busted his guts, but his disposal efficiency was very, very poor.
Yeah,
and he had 2 opportunities in the last quarter. He maybe 3. This is after we kicked the last goal of the match. He nailed up Robinson from a 20-metre pass, beautiful pass, out in front, dead centre, 35 metres, and he sprays it. And then Foote has a shot and he sprays it, and that's in between another player missing as well. And then he kicked it out on the full, and then the Lions rebounded and took up the field and kicked a point, and then they came back down. And Sam Murray got into the middle, and then I can't remember who it was. Talia. Yeah, Talia tried to bang it long and picked out basically one of the best players of the night in Eagles.
Yeah,
standing on his own. Yeah, look, it was so disappointing because they dominated at points, like really, really dominated them. Except they just didn't put on the scoreboard. And then when Brisbane got on top in the second half of the second quarter through to probably the last 5 to 8 minutes of the third quarter, they punished the Swans. They honestly should have been a lot more than 4 goals up. They should have been about 6-7 goals up. That's how much they dominated. But you're right, they clawed. The Swans quite literally clawed way back into the game.
3 last behind.
Oh, mate, it was a painful watching. It was like they were learning to crawl. They had some scintillating and blistering play, and then they get it into their forward 50 or near their forward 50, and then just contrive to just screw up each other in some of the most occasionally comical and disappointing fashions and ways you've ever seen in your life. It was, and some of the shots they missed were just like, how do you miss that?
I'm going to give you a name here, and I'll just say it: James Rose.
Oh, he was shocking.
He had his worst.
He was really bad.
He's been so good this year for the reserves. He's been such a key contributor for us. absolutely got towed up in this game.
Not even that. He spent the first half more concerned with being hero than actually playing. His performance in the first half was appalling. No, look, he wasn't even the worst defender, but he was pretty bad.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look at the player ratings, and I'm going to rattle off a couple of names. And there are a couple of persistent offenders here, a couple of regulars, and then there are a couple of players who just you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be in the worst, but I'll rattle them off anyway.
Yeah.
So we had Talia. He was not that good. He was actually quite poor.
Yeah.
He did not have a good game. Mayborn was beaten quite convincingly. Alex Johnson was played at full forward for a little over 2 quarters.
Oh, was he?
Bizarrely played at full forward. We couldn't even understand why. And then he went into the midfield, and then he went into defence, and he had basically no impact on the game. Rawdon did okay, but he had some pretty big turnovers. Then Foot, he busted his ass, but his disposal efficiency was nightmarish. I had to sort of count how many times he hit targets, and there weren't many in the last quarter.
Yeah.
Kurt Tippett, I gave him 6.5, but to be honest, if it wasn't for his last quarter, he would have got a 4. His first half was disrespectful. He just looked like he was going through the motions and looked like he just didn't even give a shit. So it was really, really bad to see that. And a lot of the team, I think, went into that game super confident, maybe overconfident, and just kind of fluffed about and tried to do party tricks.
But guys like, did guys like Hayward and Florence seem a bit tired or anything? Because they've had a long, hard year, and
Hayward was jaded. He was clearly jaded. He struggled actually.
Yeah.
He looked, cut above when he had the ball, but even then he just looked tired. Florent as well. He had a few moments, but he had a few moments where he just refused to go hard, and he kind of stood off, and he waited for someone else to do something else. And
he had 18 disposals and 8 tackles, which sounds good on paper, but when it's out on the field.
On the field, you're watching it, and you're kind of like, he does some good things, and then he does some things that kind of make you scratch your head and go, well, you can't do that and expect to get back into the seniors. So maybe it's a physical thing, I don't know, but yeah, he's got a long way to go. Sean Edwards didn't have a good game. He was played a full forward for pretty much the entire first half, and I reckon he might have had maybe 3 touches to half time. He was just not involved at all, and
see, he's another one of those guys who can move around. I mean,
and
when I do look at when I do watch the Swans reserves on a live stream or what have you, they're quick. They move the ball so quickly, and they're so deadly with it. But you also have guys who can rotate, like in the seniors, but more kind of mid forward rather than mid defense or anything like that. Like Edwards, Jack, Rose. Florent can move in there. Aaliyah can move between. Yep. Ruck.
Oh, don't worry, we're getting to Aaliyah.
No?
We're getting to Aaliyah. Look, I think you're right, and he was a victim of the fact that the Swans could not move the ball fluently at any point in the match.
Yeah.
So they had to move him out of the forward line because he was wasted there, and I think the move was well over a quarter too late. I don't even think he should have started there. Ronke was all but absent, so he was pretty poor.
Yeah, down this year.
Yeah, look, I don't think he'll make it. Dan Robinson, he picked up a lot of possessions, but butchered it, and then missed that opportunity in the last quarter, which I think an under 14 could kick.
Yep.
Leonidas, he
does a few good things. I like him when he's good.
Yeah, like he was Jekyll and Hyde. Like, he did some really good things, and then he just does some things where you're just like, Tyrone, and you just pinch your nose and give yourself a
Tyrone,
face
why?
Why, exactly. And you hear it from the sidelines on the bench. All the boys are going, Tyrone, why?
Yeah.
So
Now we've been talking about the boys who could probably improve a bit or had a bit of a shocker. What about Dawson?
superb. He was probably the best on field, but the Brisbane Lions player got that. Can't remember the name off the top of my head, but 4 goals, 28 disposals and 7 marks.
Yeah.
8 clearances and 5 inside 50s, and he did it almost all in the last 3 quarters. He was,
really?
He wasn't having an impact in the first quarter at all.
Yep.
He was another one of those playing out of the forward line and really not getting too much, and then he worked his way into the game. Aaliyah had a nightmare. To be honest, I don't think I rated him too high. Toby Pink was okay. He did some good things. He kicked 2 goals, which was good, but
2 goals.
it's a bit too. Yeah, look, he was a target up forward, and he did okay, but he's too small to play ruck, so it forced Tippett to play almost the entire game in the ruck, and we weren't able to actually push Tippett forward and get any sort of forward line presence out of him. I thought,
Looking at Toby Pink, do you think he'll be one of those guys who might make seniors at some point in the future, or?
No. I think even the NEAFL Grand Final at times looked a bit too much for him.
Okay.
He wasn't the worst but
he's still only young. Give him a chance.
He is. And he has a long way to go. I think he needs to develop physically big time. And not only that, but he needs to develop physically, mentally as well. And by that, by understanding what his body is capable of and then just going out and doing it. Kind of like in the way that Parker Hannabury Kennedy does it. You don't need to be silly, but you need to understand that you can do way more than what you're doing now. So, at times he just looks a little bit, I don't know, nervous and scared when he goes to the contests.
Yep.
He doesn't want to get hurt. That's what he kind of makes me think.
Yeah.
So when he's in the ruck, I mean, there may as well not even be anyone in the ruck.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't quite have the confidence in his body to do that. I agree with you there. Now, Brandon Jack, will he be delisted at the end of the year?
Now, yes.
Final.
On that, Robert from Facebook actually asked us, who do you think will be delisted? Now, Brandon Jack, I can't see a future for him at the Swans.
No.
To be honest, I don't actually see a future for him in AFL.
No. He's had his time, and
he has. He's a frustrating player
because he hasn't had the chance to, I think, play his ideal role when he has had
no,
a shot
he hasn't.
games, but you need to be able to play where you need it rather than play where you want.
Play where you want, yeah. And that has definitely been a criticism of him over his Swans career. Yeah. And I was talking again with Brendan about that on the weekend, and Foot's ahead of him, Robinson's ahead of him, Cunningham is ahead of him. Pretty much half the senior team is ahead of him to play in the midfield before he can even get in to play midfield.
Well, we're playing then. For him.
Well, he doesn't even get in the midfield sometimes in the NEAFL.
Oh, yeah.
So, I just think that he's kind of he's a guy who seems to be quite happy to just play football. Not saying he hasn't got any ambitions or anything like that, but I think he's, how Koshy came out and said, if you're happy to just play AFL, we don't want you to piss off. I get the distinct feeling that Brandon Jack is a little bit like that. He's just very happy to play football.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not on big money. So
anyone else to target for the D list?
I think... So if we're going through the reserve team, Michael Talia, I can't see him staying.
And he'd be on a bit of money at the moment.
I think it was like 340, 350. So he's played all but one game in the NEAFL. So, yeah, I can't see him sticking around. Sean Edwards, I think he'll be pretty stiff not to get an extension or a new contract.
Yeah, he's been good, I think, and especially when obviously the NEAFL Grand Final is not the best example for any of these players, really, but he has been good. He can play that half-back wing role, and also have a presence up forward. So I think, it's worth persevering with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just having a quick look on the forums to actually see who else is contracted who's having their contract run out this year. Bear with me one moment.
Yeah, go for it.
This page is loading like crazy. Someone told me to turn signatures on, and now I see everything. Maybe I should just disable it. So for the ones expiring this year, Robbie Fox, I think, will probably get an extension. Sam Fisher, I don't know. I honestly don't know. He's showing glimpses, but I don't see him being I don't think he's an NFL player.
There are others ahead of him. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You got to kind of make that call. Do you want? Because you can't draft everyone expecting them to, eventually reach AFL level. But
no, but he's a Cat B, so they might give him a Cat A contract next year anyway, because he was with GWS last year, so there is a restriction on that. Alex Johnson. So I would hope that the Swans offer him a rookie contract if possible, or a 1 to 2 year extension on low money.
A 1 year
really low money.
And to give him the benefit of a full pre-season as well.
Yeah. Tyrone Leonardis, I think he'll get cut.
Yeah, he's a chance to go, I reckon.
Yeah, Sam Murray should get a new contract.
Yep, agreed.
Colin O'Riordan should get a new contract.
Yep.
Toby Pink could be offered a extension. Ben Ronke, I think, is going. I think he's almost as good as cut. And Talia's pretty much, I think his bag's already packed, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's already back in Melbourne.
Yeah, do you reckon he would take a punt on him, or?
Yeah, as depth and cover, because he can play defence. However, he burned his bridges in his first season spectacularly. So I don't think the Swans were ever going to trust him enough to go back into the seniors. And his performance is just, they haven't been good enough.
Yeah, I don't think, he's been a bit of a failure for us, unfortunately. But that was when, to be fair, we were really struggling for key defence and key defensive depth. And I think it was good to get him, but other people have managed to step up, which is great for us. But
yes,
guys like Aaliyah and Melick and really kind of have the future set up in that sort of part of the ground. And Mayborn's been pretty good, I think, in his first year. He's got a lot of time to develop it. I mean, he was an All-Australian in his under-18 year, so in fullback. So hopefully,
and he's a defensive fullback in the same mould as Grundy as well. So
yeah, exactly. It'll be a perfect Grundy replacement, I reckon.
Yeah,
I still stand by that.
And I think, he'll get a new contract next year. I would be surprised if he actually doesn't get a new contract this year in the off season. But if we're going to keep looking at contracts, there's a couple that I would have a few question marks over going into this trade period. They are Aaliyah. As good as he was last year, he didn't have a good start of this season, and his NEAFL form hasn't been anywhere near good enough. Jordan Foote, how on earth he actually is still on the senior list beggars belief. Then we've also got James Rose, which, if he's still at the Swans next year, I doubt that he get an extension.
Oh, that's a bit harsh. I mean,
no, look, he's been around for a long time.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years, but he's been a really good, maybe not in terms of leadership, but in terms of what he does on the field, the grand final aside, I think it was a whole team kind of let down performance there. Other than Dawson, no one really kind of stood up and could say that they hold their head.
Marshall Laidler had pretty good games.
A couple of Marshall Laidler, but they're the kind of veterans there at the moment. But Rose has been. He's had a tremendous year.
But Rose has been around for. Look, Rose was recruited in 2014, I think.
Yeah.
And he's played 8 games over 3 seasons.
But to be fair, it's in a team which has been pretty hard to break into.
It has been, but even when he had that run of 5 games in 2016, he still...
Yeah, true. He wasn't
still looked
brilliant
a bit...
then.
No, he still looked a bit dodgy. Look, physically, he just doesn't look like he can play senior football in the role that he wants to play. And I think...
And they've got someone like Hayward in as well.
And he's
Seems
only
like
18
a
years
bit of an
old.
upgrade.
He's
Yeah.
18 years old. He's skinnier. He's lighter. He's more athletic and quicker, but he is basically, 5 to 8 kilos less in weight. And he goes out there and just attacks the ball and doesn't get knocked off it and doesn't let his head drop.
Yeah.
And for me, that's where I see Rose as his head drops. He's very selfish. He often doesn't do the team thing. They basically had to put him into the midfield to make him accountable, because when he was playing as a forward during the grand final, he was just doing the James Rose thing. He wasn't even defending. So he's defensive. He's defensive backs in the first half.
When he's on, he's on.
Oh yeah, I know, but in the first half, when he needed to defend, he was found wanting. Like he might as well have just been sitting in the stand. That's basically how much of an impact he had. And I think with the team, the senior team, he stands next to no chance getting into the senior team unless there's an injury crisis again.
Yeah, given another...
Because he just doesn't work hard enough.
Another trade period, another draft. Yeah, there's less chance for him to break into there, isn't there?
And there is. And I think he would be traded, but he's probably got very small value, like a 4th or a 5th round pick. Another one is potentially Daniel Robinson. He does well enough in the senior team when he gets a go, and he's a pretty reliable performer, both at NEAFL and senior. However, he's not quite good enough to break into the senior team, and he's only ever there as depth cover, which is not a bad thing, but yeah, I would sooner get rid of Foot than Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, from a list management point of view, I feel a bit safer having guys like Foot and Robinson there as, should injury strike. I mean, Swans have one of the best midfields in the comp in terms of, the top level mids. And also guys like Hewitt who really contribute well, and Jack, some of the lesser lights as well. We've got some of the best kind of lesser light midfielders in the comp as well. But should one of those guys go down, particularly inside mids, like if Josh Kennedy goes down, you want someone like Foot or Robinson there to be able to step up. And I think getting rid of one or both of those guys and turning to a draftee to replace them, someone who's younger and less big-bodied, I think is a pretty big risk.
Yeah, I agree. It is a risk, and we'll still have Dawson. Edwards will be coming up. You never know. Murray might get a go in the midfield, and he's done some really good things off the halfback flank throughout the season. So, if Sam Murray can develop himself into a legitimate defender, like an AFL level defender, and he breaks all the bad habits he has. All he has to do is just break the bad habits. He breaks them. I think he could be a pretty decent running back defender, a bit like Shaw and Balcheski were.
Yeah. Although
another
thing I've got to point out is that I mean, look at someone like Nick Newman, who was dominant in the AFL, and I'm talking dominating like we haven't seen since Tom Mitchell. He won the last year's NEAFL Grand Final. He won the best on ground in a losing team, and he took 2 years of absolute domination to break into the senior side. So you gotta, if you want to be able to do that, you gotta really give your best. I mean, even Tom Mitchell found it hard to get into the senior side. So,
you've got to show some consistency.
Yeah.
But look, let's move on to the semi-finals that are coming up this week. Now we've got, they are big games. Every final is a big game, so we can never discount the importance of them. However, it's without sounding too maybe too cocky or too confident, it's not exactly Sydney versus Adelaide at the moment.
No,
so
I think
the Swans are...
The excitement for next week comes from who's going to play the week after.
Yeah, pretty much. It certainly isn't a semi-final from last year where we played Adelaide, and they were still pretty good team, and they were just unlucky not to finish top 4, like really unlucky. So we're coming up against the Cats. We have very good form against the Cats. We've won 5 of the last 6. Actually, the average winning margin, if I pull up the document I had today, I think the average, if you take out the 110-point win, is like 34 points, which is pretty significant. And if you keep the 110-point win in there that we had, I think, in 2015, the average winning margin is almost 60 points. So let me just pull it up one sec. Loading. It's taking a sweet time. But anyway, it's like about 5-6 goals. Here we go. This took us a long time. Next up, average with the 110-point win, it's 9 goals, exactly 9 goals, and it's 32.8 without the 110-point win. So, the Swans have the massive advantage over the Cats. And as we talked about earlier, Guthrie and Kolodjasny are out. And you can add to that.
More importantly, we don't have any injury worries on our front. I think Bud be at 100% for Friday night. So, yeah, it's great to...
Unlike last year, where we lost at least 3 plays every game, Franklin had a corky and he'll come up fine. Gary Rowan had a knee hyperextension on the outside, or the inside, whichever way you want to look at it, on the medial side, but he was fine. He ran out the match unimpeded. Whereas the Cats also had Joel Selwood, who was well down, and he looked like he was injured. James Parsons, he received significant treatment throughout the match, and he could be touch and go. And Dangerfield looked like he tweaked the medial. So they're going to strap him up. There's no question about that, and run him out there. And look, they are pretty much on the brink. Even if they were to somehow win this match, they would probably get belted off the park by Adelaide.
I don't think even if Geelong should scalp it, I think they're going to struggle. But by the same token, looking at the Swans, if we win this one, and if we beat, basically if we win all our matches, there'll be 3 matches interstate. So we'll be playing Geelong in Melbourne, Adelaide in Adelaide, and Richmond at the MCG in a grand final, presuming all those kind of games go to plan. And
they'll play the winner of the second semi-final as well.
Yeah, Geelong, Adelaide, Richmond, they're the top 3 teams, top 3 kind of ranked teams on the ladder by the end of the home and away season. So I think...
And there's a massive gap. There is a significant gap between them too. So you look at Geelong and GWS, they aren't even a peg down. They're like... You might as well just add 6 to 8 spots between the ladder. That's how far off the pace they are.
Yeah.
And in the other semi-final, we have GWS, who were shocking in their first final. They were probably one of the worst first-up finals teams I've seen, and the West Coast Eagles. So, as we covered earlier, GWS have Cameron and Mumford out, and they have injury concerns and massive form concerns. They are teetering. It is not going to be a good final. That matchup is... Look, I would have thought they beat West Coast easily, but given the way West Coast played, I think West Coast are more than capable of winning. So before we jump into predictions for both the games, I just want to give you the odds. And these odds are quite frankly ridiculous. So Sydney had a record-breaking win last week, and I think they're going to break another record very soon. They are going to be the shortest priced odds in history for an elimination final winner against a qualifying final loser.
Yeah,
I loaded this page about an hour ago.
Yep.
And they are currently $1.38 to Geelong's $3.10.
So was that $3.10?
Yes, Geelong are $3.10.
Oh.
Yeah,
well,
this is at the MCG. Now,
I think
40 plus for the Swans is just $3.70.
Sorry, what was that?
40 plus for the Swans is $3.70.
$3.70. Oh, that's tempting, actually. Wow.
Yeah.
Hashtag gamble responsibly, everyone. But that's
yeah, absolutely.
I was
It
about to
is.
say, I mean, that the kind of differential there, we've been arguably the second best team all season, really, if you look at them after
Yeah.
rounds. So
Yeah.
I'm not too surprised at that, but
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And the other one, which still shocks me to the core, is GWS are massive favourites in this match. They're $1.40 to the Eagles $3. I don't get this whatsoever. And I think this is just a ploy to suck the punters in, because I don't think that game should be basically dead even.
yeah, I'll probably have GWS slight favourites, but the odds for a upset should be much closer than what they are at the moment, I think.
Oh, yeah. With Giants' form, they're out, and the way they're travelling, I think they're going to struggle to see off the Eagles. And the Eagles have two very big wins coming into the finals. They beat Adelaide on their home pitch. Then they managed to do in Port Adelaide on Adelaide Oval, which they have a superb record on. It is a ridiculous
they play well there.
record. Only West Coast and Sydney, which is funny enough, both of them have the best away records at Adelaide Oval. Actually, their winning record at Adelaide Oval is probably better than Port Adelaide or Adelaide. They've lost one game out of about 6 or 7 games, so yeah, it's neither team hold any fears. And if we have a look at premiership odds, I don't think this is fair in West Coast Eagles. Obviously, they're not going to win it, but Adelaide sits at $2.90, Richmond at $3.50, Sydney at $4.25, GWS at $7. I don't get that at all. Geelong at 17 and Eagles at 26. So, yeah, there's. I am certainly not saying load up on the Eagles. I'm just saying maybe think about the Eagles for the match, because look, we're going to do our tips, and I want to get your tips for the Eagles game first, and then we'll go on to the Swans Cats game. So hit me up with a prediction and tips. So give me as many predictions as you want, but at least a tip.
I'll give you a tip for the GWS West Coast one. I reckon GWS will just sneak a win. I'll say by 11 points. Stevie J will come back in and kick 3 goals, I'm going to say.
Ooh, yeah, yep.
That's going to be my prediction for that game. I'm also going to say that Josh Kennedy for West Coast is going to be kept to 2 goals. Is going to kick a couple, but I reckon Phil Davis will have a good game on him.
Yep. Yeah, that's not too bad. That's not too bad.
Yeah, I'm not being too adventurous like I have been at times in the past.
Yeah, look, they're not too bad. I am going to go the Eagles, and I am going to go the Eagles by 3 goals.
Yep.
Now, the Giants have a big problem, and the big problem is they are not scoring. They have so much quality, so much individual quality across the ground. They have so much potential and ability. They just don't have a game plan.
No, they have a week
worse
to
than that. Yeah, and worse than that, they just can't score. And with Cameron off, Pat and their only forward, they're going to rely on their midfield, who are in pretty bad form to score.
And Mumford's been so important to them. Like last year's
Yes.
arguably their most important player. So they're going to have
absolutely.
to sort something out quick.
Now, I'm also going Nick Nat will play.
Nick Nat will play.
Yep. That's my prediction. I reckon they're going to keep that on the wraps right until Thursday.
Have him as a
Might name him as an
something.
emergency. Yeah, I reckon they might name him as an emergency, and then for not the final dislodgement, but the one a couple of hours out, they'll name him. So
Alrighty.
I reckon he'll play. I like your Phil Davis on Kennedy. I agree with that one. But I reckon Lacroix could be in for a big one with 5 goals.
Look out for a big one, alright. Yeah, he's been a bit quiet lately, but he's due for a big one. But yeah, definitely.
You never know. Like, he's one of those players who can pop up, have a blinder, and then pretty much play like he's on the piss for like the next couple of months.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to.
I'll give you a second prediction for this game. I'll be a bit cheeky.
Didn't you already give me Stevie J 3 goals?
Yeah, 3 goals. I'm giving you one more.
Yep. Yeah, one more.
Sorry, fourth. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to say that Josh Kelly is going to get the 10 votes for the Coaches Award. I reckon he'll be best on ground.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. I think that, I wouldn't say guaranteed, but I'd say that's a pretty sure bet there.
Yeah, with guys like Dewey and Prittis around who's still playing well, given that he's just about to retire.
Yeah. Yeah, on that, I'm going to go for my last one. I'm just trying to think. I reckon the Governor.
Yep.
I reckon he'll get, let's say, 8 intercept marks.
8 intercepts, yep, that's a good call. He's certainly doing that all against Port.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think what's a high, but not extreme high, like 14. There aren't too many players who'll ever get 14. So look, there's our tips and our predictions. Now let's have a look at the SwansCast game. So look, why don't you kick us off with a bit of analysis and whatnot?
Yeah, so I think Swans going into this as favourites, and rightly so. We've carried our form from round 6 with only blushes against Hawthorn, and luckily we're not playing them this week or in the future. So I think we should win, and given our form against Geelong as well, we should win comfortably. I'm going to say Swans by 47 points.
Ooh, yep.
We've had a history of beating by about 40 points in the past, so I'm going to stick with that.
Yes.
I'm going to say Callum Sinclair to have more goals than Lance Franklin.
Oh wow! Wow. Yeah. That's a good one. I reckon he will too.
Yeah. And I'm going to say Josh Kennedy to get another 10 votes in the Coaches Award. Just he's made for finals, this guy, and I think that'll continue on. And I'm also going to say there's going to be this probably might not be too much of a prediction, but I don't think there'll be any changes in the squad.
I like it. I like it a lot, actually. I agree. No, I like that one. I like that one a lot. And I was talking about this a bit today as well. And a lot of people were commenting on the threads on Facebook, and I was saying it on the ratings and on the report as well. And I was trying to think, like, Tippett's not going to come in, not based on his performance.
Gosh, no.
Like, there's no chance. By the way everyone's performed, Tippett stands literally no chance of coming back into the finals unless there are injuries. That's literally it, or massive form drop off. Because he shouldn't come back in for Sinclair, who's performed, and he definitely shouldn't come in for Naismith and a Rock, and he's been pretty average at it.
And he wasn't afraid of them.
Yeah, and look, you've also got Malikan, who's also very unlucky to be out. However, I thought that was a tactical change, and it worked magnificently. Cunningham was good. He did his negating role. He did exactly what he had to. He did it well, and against Geelong, they don't have a particularly tall forward line, so I think they'll stay. Yeah, apart from Hawkins, which you can just put Grundy, you can even put Reed back, you can put Rampy on him. Yeah. Mills will get beaten, but you've got choices. And even when Malikan played on him, when they played at Skilled Stadium, Cardinia Park, he got beaten by him convincingly. Yeah. So I know I've been critical on Malikan in the past. Yeah, he's a good kid, he does well, he plays to the best of his current ability. I just don't think he's going to get back in for the finals. And the only team I can think of is Adelaide. But I still think, size-wise, I think we've still got Adelaide pretty covered there. Although
I think he would come in okay. Adelaide. They've got Jenkins, Tex, Mitch McGovern. They've got Tom Lynch as well, who plays up forward mostly. I think in terms of stacked forward lines, in terms of talls, I think Adelaide are one of the few teams that actually does that.
But even then, I mean, it's an interesting one, because do you bring him in just for that final and then drop him for someone? And if, let's just say we win all our games and we win that final, do you bring him in and then drop him for the grand final against Richmond
Yes.
or Eagles.
Yep.
I-
If it's against Richmond, I would
drop him.
play
Yeah.
Pelican against Adelaide and then drop him against Richmond.
To be honest,
think
if you look at that side of the draw, you've got GWS, West Coast, and Adelaide. GWS, West Coast, and Richmond.
And you
To
don't
be
have
honest-
GWS with Cameron, so
No.
the key's all down.
He doesn't. The only team, in my opinion, that he is well suited to play against that's remaining in the finals is Adelaide.
Yeah.
And even then, if Cunningham keeps performing, Towers keeps performing, Hewitt keeps performing, all the people who might be considered bottom 6, bottom 8, they keep doing their jobs. It's like, do you kind of want to sacrifice a little bit of more midfield run and grunt for more defensive power? Or
Yeah.
so I think Malikan might actually find himself out of the finals. I don't know if he'll get back in. I don't mind him for Adelaide, but look, last time we played Adelaide, he copped a bit of a hiding from McGovern, who gave him a bit of a bath for about 2.5 quarters.
But who else would you play? And who would stay in?
You got
would you
Marsh and Laidler. Marsh and Laidler could come in, do a job. They've been pretty good, but at the same time, you've got the same problem. Do you drop someone pretty much on the prelim to bring someone else in? So there's if Malikan does not play this weekend, I think it's almost safe to say he's not getting back in for the finals because there's no more matches. There's no more match fitness. So the Swans would have to find a way to keep him, match fit.
Yeah, I think it's good to have him on standby should we come up against Adelaide. At this point in time, I'm still leaning towards playing him. For that structure, I think if we go too small, they will go over the top of us. But, yeah, I do see where you're coming from there, yeah.
Yep. Look, I'll give you a couple of predictions. I reckon the Swans will win by at least 7 goals, so 42 points.
Yeah.
I think that Franklin will continue his red-hot form, and I reckon he's going to give Tom Lonergan a bit of a story to tell the kids about how Buddy Franklin gave him a good old toweling up in the semi-final. So I'm going to say Franklin for 5. I think he's good enough.
So you think still 7?
Well, that's for you, man. If Sinclair's kicking 7, there is no chance for Tippett.
No, I got no.
There's none.
Yeah.
So I reckon another one. I reckon Towers is going to have another blinder. The thing is, he isn't going to be playing through the midfield. I think they're going to play him in a defensive forward role.
Yep.
And I reckon they're going to play him against the Irish fella. What's his name?
Zach Tui.
Yes, Tui. They're going to play him against Tui like they did last time. He's going to try and shut him down and negate him, and he could rotate onto like Motlop or someone else in the forward line, or even play off a wing on a lead-up role. So I think he's due for another one. He's a good finals performer. And third and last is McVeigh. I think he is going to celebrate with a win. Actually, that goes with Swans by 42. So I'll just say McVeigh won't be injured.
No, yeah. Oh, that'd be tragic if you were. Oh, don't say that.
It's a shocking prediction, but it's the only thing I can think of at the moment.
Yeah.
Look, it's his 300th game. So well done to him. And more importantly, he's only one game short of equaling the Sydney Swans all-time finals game holder record of 29, I believe it is.
Okay.
So by the end of this finals, we could have broken many records. With McVeigh, if we make it to the grand final, he will be the most finals experienced Swan in Swan history. Towers will have played his 50th game. McVeigh his 300th game. Parker played his 150th on the weekend. So there's a lot of good going.
The stars are lining up for us.
Oh, they certainly are. And look, the Swans have been superb. So long may this rich vein of form continue for another month would be good. No more injuries would be better.
Yeah. Got to focus on Geelong this week. Put them away.
Yes. Yeah, put them away early and just strangle them for the match.
Not get injured.
They're not. I would be surprised if they rolled over like they did last week, or they just wilted under the pressure. But if Tigers can bring that kind of intensity, I think the Swans can bring even more, and I think they'll just strangle them.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Look, Stephen, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you on again.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. It's been great fun having a chat about this mighty team.
Yeah. Go Swans, hey?
Yeah, definitely. I'm feeling it now.
And remember, guys, you can always stay in touch with us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with the tag The Swans Blog, and you can always get in contact with us during the week and during the show using the hashtag SwansCast. We will be back next week, win, lose, or draw, so stay tuned. Thank you for listening, and until next time, go Swans.